This program was made possible by a grant from the Banaro Lappi Foundation. Someone new is about to enter your life. In a short while, this individual will step into your home or workplace for the very first time. Oh, sure, you've welcomed plenty of new people, spouses, children, neighbors, or co-workers. But it's safe to say that this particular individual is unlike anyone you've met before. What makes this new arrival so special? Well, before too much time has passed, you'll notice the remarkable intelligence, the friendly disposition, and the easygoing personality. But at first glance, you will probably be most aware of the fur-covered body, 4 legs, and a tail. That's right. You will soon meet a specially trained dog guide from the Seeing Eye.
Oh, look.
Oh, my goodness, a dog.
The Seeing Eye has produced this video as an extension of its training program for people who are blind. Students spend up to 4 weeks at the Seeing Eye, learning to achieve independence, safety, and confidence with their dogs. But as a member of a Seeing Eye graduate's family, community, or workplace, you need to learn a few things too.
Here she comes.
It is vital that people who expect to have regular contact with a Seeing Eye dog understand just what this animal is and what it's not. Seeing Eye dogs are not pets. They are working dogs, and each one forms a close working relationship with a blind person. This enables it to guide that person through all sorts of environments: city streets, country roads, airports, shopping malls, you name it. And in all of their training, there is one overriding concern: safety. This is where you come in. When you treat a Seeing Eye dog in a way that reinforces its training, you strengthen the dog's working relationship, and in this way you help assure the safety of the person the dog is guiding. But if you treat the dog in a way that contradicts its training, you run the risk of damaging that relationship. This could lead to problems in the dog's performance, and even create a risk to the blind person's safety. The Seeing Eye's training ranks among the best in the world, but it can all be undone if friends and family members don't support it when a blind person returns home.
Glad to see you guys.
That's what this video is all about, the essential do's and don'ts of sharing your home or workplace with a Seeing Eye dog. Now, don't panic, it's easy. You just need to learn a few basic rules. And since we're asking you to learn a few things, let's start by explaining exactly what students learn at the Seeing Eye. By the time students complete the Seeing Eye's training program, they have learned how to travel under any circumstances and manage 100% of the dog's care. In training, students work with their dogs for a minimum of 3 hours a day and live with their dogs around the clock. A lot of attention is focused on different kinds of street crossings, complex traffic patterns, walking along roads with and without sidewalks, and moving through stores, restaurants, and offices that are typical of the student's own environment. And as far as care is concerned, students learn how to keep their dogs clean and healthy entirely on their own. They groom the dog every day, feed it at scheduled times, brush its teeth, monitor its health, take it outside to answer the calls of nature, and clean up after it. If you're worried that you may need to help care for the dog, relax. The graduate takes care of everything. The most critical time for a Seeing Eye dog is the first month in the graduate's normal environment. During this period, it's especially important to continue the routine that graduate and dog establish during training. And most important of all is the moment when they first enter the dog's new home. When Graduate and dog arrive at your home or workplace for the first time, it's important to remember 3 words. Keep life simple. Don't throw a party, even though the occasion may seem to call for one. A noisy, jubilant welcome will make the dog confused and anxious, which makes it much harder for the dog to adapt to the new environment. Also, don't approach the dog or stare at it. For people, this is the most natural action in the world, but it is one of the most upsetting things for a dog. The worst possible welcome for a new dog is a crowd of strangers staring at it, blocking its way, and offering a confusion of new voices.
Does the dog get nervous around people?
Instead, keep the environment as quiet and low-key as possible. Offer the graduate a simple welcome, one person at a time. Start out with just the members of the household. If other family members or friends want to stop by, don't have them over all at once, but spread out their arrival over several days. And in the workplace, where there may be an overwhelming number of new faces, it's always helpful to let the graduate make a formal introduction.
Oh, no, don't pet her. Oh, I'll bring her around to meet you.
Don't pet the dog or try to make friends right away. It's best to let the dog make the first advance. Once it becomes familiar with you and others in the environment, it will make friends on its own. Once Graduate and dog have settled in, you can help them adjust to the new setting and work as a more effective team by following certain guidelines in 7 different areas: petting, feeding, etiquette, correction, distraction, interference, and traveling. We'll go through them one by one. For many people, petting a dog, even a strange dog, is a reflex. It happens without even thinking. But remember, a seeing eye dog is a working dog. Petting will distract it from its job. And never forget what that job is: guiding a person safely.
I'm about to be there. Hey, please don't bother the dog while she's in harness.
There's a simple rule of thumb. If the dog is wearing a harness, it's working and should not be petted. If the dog is just on a leash, petting is okay, but unless you know the dog well, always ask the owner's permission first.
Come on, Trevor. To the curb. Good boy.
There's
Good
one other
boy.
issue here.
Trevor,
For the
right.
dog, petting is a
Forward, boy.
powerful expression
Good
of
job.
affection.
Good
It's one of the
boy.
things that helps maintain the
Forward.
bond that
Good
lets
boy.
human and dog team up so
Right to the curb.
effectively. And that's why it's important that the greatest amount of affection always comes from the graduate. If other family members begin pouring affection on the dog with lots of play and petting, the dog may form a closer bond with them, and this could compromise the graduate's ability to travel safely. Over time, other people can certainly become friends with the dog and are even free to play with it. But the greatest amount of contact should be with the graduate. Remember, working or not, a seeing eye dog is never a pet.
Remember, he's working as long as this harness is on him.
All right.
And you can't touch him.
Hi, Harold. I have a question. Could you help me with something?
Dogs are hungry most of the time, plus they'll eat almost anything. And that makes feeding another problem area. Family members and co-workers often want to give the dog food, usually some of their own food. This must be avoided at all costs. For one thing, there are health considerations. Most human food is not very good for dogs, and some things, like chocolate, can actually be toxic. But there's a behavioral issue here as well. If a dog gets snacks between scheduled meal times, even dog biscuits, it may grow accustomed to eating whenever it wants to. It may also come to assume that any food within reach is fair game. If a dog often gets table scraps at home, you can hardly blame it if it decides to grab a tasty morsel off a table in a restaurant. So, no matter how tempting it may be, no feeding. Keep your food on your plate and let the dog wait for its dinner. Dog etiquette is a related issue. People sometimes encourage a seeing eye dog to be more casual than is appropriate for a working animal.
Come on, Gwen.
At home, family members may coax the dog to sit on furniture or play very aggressively, and both of these behaviors contradict the dog's training. In the workplace, co-workers with the best of intentions may insist that a dog be allowed to run free. This should always be avoided. If a dog gets in the habit of running around loose, its performance as a dog guide may suffer, and this creates a risk to the blind person's safety. In the workplace, a seeing eye dog should always be secured near the graduate. It should never be allowed to run loose.
Passive. You center.
While giving the dog too much hospitality is the more common problem, giving it too little hospitality must also be avoided. Families that have no experience with dogs may want to restrict the animal to the garage or to a certain group of rooms, but a seeing eye dog must go everywhere its master goes. At mealtimes, the dog should be secured near the graduate, even during Thanksgiving dinner in the fancy dining room. This constant companionship is one of the most important steps in strengthening the working relationship, and it should never be denied.
So where'd you go on your vacation? California. I mean, it was beautiful.
If a dog does grab a piece of food when it shouldn't, you will probably see the graduate issue a correction.
Why did you do that? You're going to hurt her.
This is done by pulling sharply on the leash and saying, "Fui." Leash correction is not punishment and doesn't hurt the dog. It is simply the way the graduate tells the dog it has done something wrong. A graduate will correct a dog under many circumstances, especially when traveling. For example, if it is distracted by another animal. Leash correction may seem harsh, but it's really just a way of making sure the dog keeps its mind on the job. And like petting, it's one of the fundamental ways that dog and person communicate.
Good boy.
So I guess we're going to have to replace the whole core system, which means we need new terminals, right?
Yes.
With a new seeing eye dog, one of the most difficult adjustments for sighted people is accepting the fact that dog and graduate actually know what they're doing. Watching them approach a busy intersection, it may look as if they're going to walk right into traffic. At such times, you may feel an irresistible urge to interfere.
Oh my gosh, John.
Okay.
This is understandable. You're concerned about the person's safety. And after all, it's only a dog, right? Well, not exactly. This is a seeing eye dog. This dog is trained never to put its human partner at risk. If you become alarmed when walking with a graduate and dog, and suddenly gasp in fear or throw out an arm or grab the harness, it is extremely upsetting for both the dog and the blind person. Restraining yourself may be a challenge, but at moments like these, you must trust the dog just as the blind person does. Interference does no good and will only erode the confidence they've spent weeks building up. Equally important for safe travel is not creating a distraction. This can happen entirely by accident and with the best of intentions, especially if you happen to see a friend or family member and their dog out on the street.
Hello, Miss Oliver and Lola. How are you doing today?
Make sure you do not call out to them in the middle of a street crossing. This is a critical moment when all the dog's attention should be focused on getting across safely. A loud greeting, especially from a familiar voice, can break the dog's concentration, possibly with serious consequences. In a situation like this, always wait until they've made it all the way across, and then stop to say hello.
Hello, Miss Oliver.
Lola 6. Hi, Miss Anderson. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and yourself?
If you are walking with a seeing eye graduate and the dog is guiding, it's important to walk in the right spot. For example, don't walk on the person's left side. The dogs are trained to work in the middle of a sidewalk or other pathway, but because they walk on the person's left, they often prefer to work as far to the left as